This is David Newman. I help experts speak more profitably. Today on the show, we're going to talk about how to use public speaking as the ultimate leadership brand builder, the ultimate marketing strategy, and the ultimate one-to-many sales tool. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm the founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything. Let me ask you, are you committed to up-leveling your leadership? There was a time when leaders were in the background, but today leaders must be out front. They are not just the face of the organization, but we as leaders are also the voice. So how can you as a leader make sure that your voice is heard? Stay tuned. Remember, you can chat about this episode or any past episodes on our LinkedIn or our Facebook groups by simply going and looking for Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. If you're a new listener, a new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. And as always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you tune into podcasts. And we always need your help in staying relevant. So please go over there and rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and please share it with everybody you know. You can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, all the way from Philadelphia, you'll be pleased to know, David, to Colorado, and even into Washington, D.C. You can also find us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, regular viewer, thank you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. With a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every show, we're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. And remember, you can also catch us on Spotify, Google Home, Alexa, by simply saying, play Dov Baron podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, sales leader, entrepreneur, leader in any capacity, you can no longer hide in your ivory tower. I know you know that. Today's leaders must be out front. They are not just the face of an organization, they are the voice. But the question is, how can you, as a high-level leader, make sure that your voice is not only heard, but is effective and congruent to your brand? Well, let's find out together. My guest on this episode is David Newman. David Newman is the author of the business bestseller, Do It Marketing, 77 instant action ideas to boost sales, maximize profits, and crush your competition. He's the founder of the Speaker Profit Formula mentoring program, and he has helped over 550 speakers, consultants, experts, and leaders boost their reach and revenue through the power of speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome David Newman.
The crowd goes crazy. Thank you for that awesome intro, Dov. Great to be here.
Good to have you with me, to have you with us, my friend. Thank you so much. And I always like to start my shows with this question because it's not just about leadership, and because I think that we as leaders have been impacted and therefore we have impact. So my question to you is this: who is it that we likely wouldn't suspect or wouldn't know even, who's been a major influence on your life?
Well, this is totally spot on with our topic today. It's actually Dr. Michael Ray from Stanford Business School. And if that name is familiar to anyone listening, he was on the cover of Fast Company magazine. This is about 10 years ago. Cover of Fast Company magazine as the most creative man in America. And the reason for that is because Michael taught the famous Creativity in Business MBA course at Stanford Business School. And he did that for about 25 years. Then he certified about 24 consultants and coaches and experts to teach this creativity and business curriculum outside the Stanford environment to corporations and companies worldwide. I was one of those 24 people certified in teaching that program. Fun fact, one of the other ones is Jim Collins of Good to Great fame.
Wow.
So when I studied with Michael, I realized that there's a whole, and Dov, you know this because you teach this and preach this all the time, but that was my first exposure to truly heart-centered leadership and being a whole person and being a good person, not worried about, hey, how can I be a better leader, but truly understanding that when you become a better person, you automatically become a better leader and a better executive and a better salesperson and a better parent and a better son and daughter and brother and everything. So that was a very transformational period of my life. And I've adopted many of Michael's philosophies that we now teach and preach in my current work from that original creativity and business curriculum that's been taught to tens of thousands of executives in the Stanford Business School environment.
So did you study with him at Stanford as part of his curriculum?
Yes, I did not go to Stanford, but he when he brought people to Stanford for this teacher certification program, that's where we met, and we've had a lifelong friendship ever since, and that was around 2003.
That's beautiful. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I always love asking that question because I'm fascinated by the impact that people have on us. And oftentimes it's people that most of us don't know, you know, and I ask it, and I'll tell you something, and I've mentioned this on many shows. Invariably, the person who had impact is a teacher. And I find it fascinating, and I am definitely financially driven, like any human being who lives certainly in North America. And I'm not a raving socialist or anything like that. But at the same time, it's fascinating to me that there are CEOs making hundreds of millions of dollars a year and school teachers who are barely making ends meet. And when I ask leaders, the people who are often making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, who was your greatest influence that we wouldn't know? Oftentimes it's a teacher who was at minimum wage. And that for me is freaking mind blowing. It was Mrs. Grapesmith. You know, who was she? Oh, she was my English teacher. Isn't that fascinating? And it really shows how we have our priorities mixed up.
For sure. I could not agree more, right? It's the impact versus income equation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fascinating. And I know that impact versus income equation is a big piece of your work. Tell us why that's a big part of your work and how that came about for you. Because, you know, you've been a speaker for a very long time, but it transformed for you. And it was about that impact piece. So tell us about that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, I think you can get to a certain level of financial success and chasing the almighty dollar. And like you, I'm a huge capitalist. So no one listening should get this wrong. But what I started really paying attention to, Dov, is more of these entrepreneurs and executives would come to us and they would say, well, you know, I want to develop my platform as a speaker. I want to develop my leadership brand. I want to share my message, but it's not about the money. And the first dozen times I heard it's not about the money, what was going through my head is, you're crazy. Of course it's about the money. It's always about the money. I'm a marketing guy. It has to be about the money. But the more I started to tune in and listen to these amazing C-level executives, managers, brand managers, sales professionals, they said, no, we have plenty of money. Now we're looking to make that next level impact. on our audiences, on our prospects, on our client base, even on our industry, and maybe even on the world at large. So I realized that I was starting to serve not necessarily a bunch of executives and entrepreneurs who were chasing the almighty dollar. I was really starting to attract a bunch of world changers and game changers and people who, yes, they had a message. Yes, they wanted to have the impact and income equation tip in their favor, but only because the dollars were a representation of significance.
Yes.
And the dollars were a way to keep score of how many people am I helping and how many people am I serving and how broadly can I start to share our company's message in that servant leadership mode.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, going the other way, there are many speakers. I mean, you and I both know this because we've been speakers for a very long time, but there are many speakers who are financially really struggling. And oftentimes they are speakers who are very good. And do you think it's that mindset that it's not about the money? Do you think that that is the problem, or is it something else altogether?
I'm pretty sure it's the mindset about the money. So, I think whenever we're striving, whenever we're overreaching, whenever we're hyper-focused on the outcome instead of the source of the outcome, we're going to start to do backward strategies. We're going to start to sabotage ourselves. We're going to start to do the wrong things in the wrong way for the wrong reason. Even if the folks that are listening as the entrepreneurial speaker, they're like, well, no, it's not as easy as Dov and David make it sound. This is hard. This is challenging. My advice would be, imagine if it were easy. Imagine if money flowed to you and through you effortlessly, that wasn't even the main driver of your outreach and marketing and sales activity. What would you do differently? Who would you talk to? What words would you use? What value proposition would you put in front of them where they would say, oh my goodness, we need to hear that message. We need to bring you in. We need to hire you. This is exactly what we've been looking for. When we let the dollar drive the discussion, the problem is that the value gets misplaced, right? The value is in the transformation. It is not in the transaction. And when we go out into the world and we're pursuing a transactional, hey, you give me X dollars, I give you this speech, I give you this consulting, I give you this coaching, I give you this product or service, that is completely mismatched. When we offer value and invite engagement, and we make this a collaborative exchange of value or exchange of ideas, money for products, money for services, and so forth, the entire vibration of what we're doing automatically gets elevated, and people can feel a higher purpose to working with you and hiring you, because not only does it fulfill your goals and your agenda, but it fulfills their goals and their agenda. Right. And that's truly a mutually beneficial relationship where everyone has profit, and there's profit in the meaning, and there's profit in the transformation. And of course, the final piece of that is the transaction. But the transaction is just a natural, organic outcome of them getting what they want and you getting what you want.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is because, many of our viewers and our listeners are C-suite individuals. And many of them now high-level consultants. And many of the high-level consultants and strategists or even coaches were maybe 10 years ago in a C-suite. Yeah. And along came the recession. And with the recession, they went, oh my God, I can't rely on a company anymore. I got to go out and do my own thing. And my suspicion, the reason I bring this up is my suspicion is, and I've said this for the last 3 years, that I said that in around 2019, 2020, we are definitely headed for another recession. Now, that's still predictive, and I may still be absolutely wrong, and I'm kind of, it would be nice to be wrong in this case, but I see that happening. And when that does, there'll be downsizing, there'll be resizing, there'll be all those things, and many of those consultants, many of those C-suite individuals are smart enough already to go, whoo, I could be on the line here, I could be on the chopping block. So what's my personal brand? How do I get out there? And the reason I'm bringing it up is because many of them are probably thinking, I'd like to speak, I'd like to consult, I'd like to do that, but I don't know if I can make a living. I don't know if I can ask for the money and not make it all about the money. And that's why I brought up that question for you, because here's a guy or a lady who is making, let's just use a round figure, 150 a year, working for XYZ organization, and is now looking to go on their own and go, I could starve to death. Help us to have them grasp the mindset shift that's needed to say, okay, this could be my world.
Absolutely. And such a great question. So I'm going to give you two mindset shifts. And one is towards the negative, unfortunately, but we have to acknowledge it so people aren't surprised by it. And then one is a huge positive. I just spoke to a former very high level Accenture executive. He led a 20,000 person practice at Accenture. Wow. And then just like you're saying, Dov, went out on his own. The first question I asked him is, was that a rude awakening when you no longer had the Accenture logo on your business card? And he said, and how? Mm-hmm. When I had the Accenture logo on my business card and I was this practice leader, practice manager, 20,000 people reporting to me through my division, people would return my call instantly. They would return my emails. I said jump. A whole army of people said how high. Sure. I go out on my own as an innovation and strategy consultant. I can't even hail a cab in New York City. Can't even hail a cab.
Critics.
So that cold awakening, right? That rude awakening, I think we have to, exactly what you said, we have to dig our well before we're thirsty. Mm-hmm. The same executive said to me, David, in the 24 months before I left, I spoke at major conferences and associations and meetings over 100 times. I was never paid because I was the Accenture executive. So now, of course, he's a $20,000 keynoter. So let's flip over to the positive side. Is this possible? Is this doable? The answer is yes. Our clients do this all the time, but you have to you have to walk before you run, before you fly.
Right.
So nothing's going to be handed to you. Nothing's going to be just automatically easy. But I think having a proven path and a formula that you can count on where, okay, now I have my sea legs. Now I know how to walk. Now I know how to run. Now I know how to fly. And I also want to reframe your comment about whatever economic recession, dips, flips, pivots, and divots. They're always going to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
People who are consultants will suffer. People who are professional speakers will suffer. People who are professional coaches will suffer. Here's who's never going to suffer. And this is what we recommend all of our executives and entrepreneurs do immediately. Don't worry about being a professional blank, coach, consultant, speaker. All of us, Dov, you included, you're a professional problem solver. Mm-hmm. Professional problem solvers, when things go south, when things get bad, when things get tight, professional problem solvers are even more in demand than when things are peachy, wonderful, and the cash is flowing freely in the streets. So if you've ever thought, maybe I want to get out, I'm going to write books, consult, go speak on the speaking circuit, pick up $10, $15, $20,000 speaking fees, this is a great time to dig your well before you're thirsty, understanding that it's a difficult road once that logo is no longer on your business card, but many have tread that path before you, and there's definitely a proven path and a proven system.
And I know that is what you do. You provide that proven path, proven system. And I want to say to everybody that it's, I love that analogy of dig your well before you're thirsty, because oftentimes we don't. And oftentimes, I have clients, private clients who are doing 100 speeches a year inside of an organization, underneath the banner of an organization, and then are shocked when they go out into the world and say, how come I can't get booked? How come I can't get booked? Were they paying for you before? I'll ask them that, and they'll say, yep, they were, because they paid the organization, right? They paid Deloitte, or they paid whoever it was. And I say, yeah, but you now don't have that. It's that same thing. So that question, which I love, I think is so important that for all of us. And by the way, I think this is important for you as a leader, not even as a leader who takes up speaking, but just as a leader, which is to ask the question, what is the problem we solve? You have to start there. What is the problem I solve? And the answer for that, by the way, and I understand this too well personally, is the answer is all kinds of things. Oh my God, and here's the shopping list. And I get that, I understand that, every fiber of my being screams that, but that's too much for them. So you've got to look at what is the problem they want solved, and can I serve that? Oh, yes, okay, cool. Stick it in that. My words on that is, that's the thin end of the wedge. It'll open the door a little bit, you can pour in the rest, but you've got to have something to wedge in the door. Are we on the same path with that one?
Oh, completely right. Spot on. In fact, one of the things that I say, same exact point, I say there's no such thing as a generic solution to a specific problem. And every one of our clients and everyone in our audiences always has specific problems. And this also ties into those executives who might want to jump into the world of professional consulting and speaking. Generalists die on price, and experts win on value. And one of the key determinations about your level of expertise is how narrow, how specific, or how niche is your topic, or niche, depending on how you like to pronounce that word. But how specific is it? Because the generalists that have 30 different topics, and they just change with the way that the wind is blowing, they will never have the impact, nor will they ever have the economic value that a true expert specialist has.
And by the way, I want everybody to understand, you may not like that. I don't like it. I hate it. I'm going to be really clear. I hate it, because the truth of the matter is that my knowledge base is vast, it's wide, and it's incredibly deep. And I'm not saying that to blow my own horn or sound like a superstar. It's not that. But it is what's in the way when I have to deal specifically. So it's like, can I solve a specific problem? Magnificently, no doubt about it. However, if I only put out that general information, then it becomes confusing for people.
Right.
And so that's the point, is to help people get away from the confusion. So understand, it's not about you saying, well, I'm no longer that. It's only saying that this is what they want, and I'm going to come forward with that. Yeah.
And sometimes it's really just about positioning, right? Our mutual friend, Mark Levy, of course, brilliant positioning consultant, probably the best in the world.
Absolutely.
But when we work with folks about articulating their value proposition, it can be a 5, 10, 15% shift that takes someone from generalist that has all these tools and strategies in their toolkit to, okay, what's the sharp tip of the arrow? As you said, the thin side of the wedge. What is that sharp tip of the arrow that's going to gain attention? And then behind that topic, or behind that specific outcome, that's where you can bring your depth of knowledge and all the variety of skill sets that you have as a consultant, as an author, as a speaker, but it's all in the service of getting them to that one crystal clear outcome that they're already committed to achieving.
Absolutely. Now, as a leader, as we've actually already mentioned it here, that many C-suite individuals are actually going out and they're seeing it's part of their role now.
Yeah.
I actually have met and worked with several CEOs who tell me now that the pressure is on them to bring in $1 million a year. As a salesperson, they go, well, I'm the CEO. Why do I have to do $1 million in sales? Isn't that everybody else's job? It's put on them to go out and speak for the company, and maybe not even within the area. So they may be speaking in something else, but representing that company.
Right.
So as business professionals, we all know that every marketing dollar has got to work far harder than it ever did before in order to meet the business goals. And that's why your company is making you go out there and do sales, but it's making you go out there and do speaking. But there are C-suite individuals, CEOs, whatever it is, who are saying, I'm not in the marketing world. Is speaking just marketing?
No, speaking is leadership. What a great question. So this is spot on for every single leader listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this economy, in this world that we're in right now, personal brands are more powerful than corporate brands. That is just a plain statement of fact. You look at any major corporation, and it's the people, it's the faces and the voices that are out in the marketplace, being quoted in the media, speaking online, speaking on videos, speaking on webinars, and speaking in person.
Absolutely.
That literally shape the perception of that corporation, of their products, of their services, and of their brand.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that C-suite leaders and executives are already very good at, because this is how they got to be C-suite leaders, they're very good at clear communication.
Mm-hmm.
Clarity is generally not the problem. Where they fall down, and the gap that we're trying to help them fill, is the inspiration gap. That when you speak, do people take action?
Mm-hmm.
Are they getting on board with your ideas? Internally, are you a person of influence? Because you can have positional power. You can have the ultimate positional power. You're the owner, you're the president, you're the CEO, you're the chairman of the board. But do people listen? Do they lower their resistance? Do they buy into your ideas? Do they commit because they want to, not because they have to? And that's one leadership metric. Externally, Dov, I think you're absolutely right. When a PR firm or internally corporate communications would send an executive out to speak, they're now responsible for results. Sometimes sales, sometimes other things. Sometimes it's about how many appointments did we book? How many demos, how many sales, how many inquiries, how many strategic partnerships, how many alliances, how many channel partners did we recruit at that big trade show? If they don't measure those things, and believe it or not, some companies don't measure their return on their executive speaking strategy, but even the ones that do, they look at those numbers and they say, we have to do better. So we need more strategies and tactics to close that influence gap, that when top executives go out to speak, are they making an impact? Are they moving a needle on those appointments, leads, demos, sales, strategic alliances, and partnerships? Because after all, why did they go out? Why did they go to that event? Why did they go to that big conference or trade show or industry expo? They obviously went out for brand building, for sales, for marketing, or for industry leadership. And I think industry leadership, we figure all different kinds of ways. Let's spend millions of dollars on social media. Let's do big billboards. Let's spam the universe. Let's buy thousands or hundreds of thousands of email lists. How about we simply recruit our top executives, who are probably already out speaking on behalf of the company, into the best, most persuasive, most influential sales force, because people want connection. People want warmth, and they want personality, and they want a human-to-human connection in the marketplace. The more hyper-connected we are digitally, the more important personal interaction and human connection and relationship become. The best way to spread that one to many is having an executive speaking strategy.
Yeah, I fully agree. I see this every single day, that we are more connective devices and we are less connected as individuals and humans. And that it's fascinating for me, because I saw as we went online with a lot of marketing and a lot of even delivery of programs, it was fascinating for me to watch how people stopped turning up for seminars and went all online, and they were all part of the digital world. But it's interesting now, as you said, about 10 years in, people are going, hold on a sec, I want to go to conferences. And conferences are now doing much better than they even did before. And I was at an event in February, a massive event, 6,000 people at this event. And I went around, and it was part of my, because I'm always doing research, part of my research was I was asking, of all the sessions, what percentage do you think you attended? Because, there's a lot of sessions going on, and there's a lot of different rooms. And I said, as a percentage of your time at the conference, how many, what percentage do you think you attended? And I met several people who said, I don't go to a single session. My friend John said, I've been coming to this event for 7 years. I pay $5,000 to come to this event. I have never been in the room except for the opening. He goes, I don't go in the room after that. And I go, where are you then? He goes, I'm sitting right outside here, where I was talking to him, or I sit at Starbucks. He goes, because that's where I meet people. Because we all want this real connection, and these events are often a gathering place for that. And when you're on that stage, you have that opportunity to connect with people in a very human way with potentially 6,000 people. However, let's go back to this piece that you brought up, which is this distinction between information, which I think we any of us who are bright, we want to do that, and we often let our ego get the best of us and go, well, my information is going to be more groundbreaking than their information, and I'll better slides, but the humanity. So how do you get the people you're working with to cross that gap that you said is the information versus inspiration? How do you get them across the inspiration gap?
Yeah, totally fantastic. Well, so let me first of all validate what you said about the hallway conversation and the value of that hallway conversation. The challenge that I would pose is, what can we do inside the meeting room, inside the main stage plenary session, or inside the breakout room that would make that one-to-many conversation feel like one-to-one?
Absolutely.
Now, I know you're great at this. Our buddy Mark Levy is great at this. And this is exactly what we teach our clients. It's about being more vulnerable, being more open, and sharing not just your information, but sharing your personality, right? Sharing your advice, your insights, your biases, your slants. Because here's the story. If we wanted just information, we would never have to leave our home.
Nope.
Dov, right now at your fingertips, at my fingertips, we're sitting in front of these devices. I can find any piece of information ever known to man on the planet with Google. If I want information, I'll go to YouTube. If I want how-to, I've got tutorials. I've got people that are 10 times smarter than me teaching all this amazing information. What I don't have is I don't have guidance. I don't have recommendation. I don't have, David, do this, don't do that. Go left, don't go right. My experience has been X, it has not been Y. So people want you for your experience, your opinion, your slant. Do not be vanilla, do not be middle of the road. Share what you believe, share your manifesto, share what you're passionate about. What are you for? What are you against? How have you come to learn what you're teaching or what you're showing them? How has your company, what's your company's story in showing how your company learned about the products and services and wants and needs and desires and fears and hopes and dreams of your prospect base? So humanizing your company and humanizing yourself and not being afraid to take a stand. Take a stand for what you're for and take a stand for what you're against. There's nothing better than a good hero versus villain story. So in your industry, who's the hero? By the way, it's not you, it's your clients, right? And who's the villain? What forces are working against them? Who's got the black hat? And where's the evil music coming in? And there's some forces that you are protecting your clients and prospects and customers from. What are they? I mean, the best example that I always share, and this immediately gets a response from anyone that I share this with, is Salesforce.com. The reason Salesforce.com is a multi-billion, zillion-dollar company with a global brand is the little button that said software and then the Ghostbusters circle and the no-go, right? They're like, we don't believe in software. Software is the enemy. This is the sales CRM that lives in the cloud. Nothing to install, nothing to update, nothing to corrupt, nothing to infect. You can get to it any place you can get from an internet connection, no software. And that logo, even though it was with them from the very beginning, it is still with them today.
Absolutely.
Because they are the company that said no more diskettes, no more CD-ROMs, if you guys remember diskettes, no more diskettes, no more CD-ROMs, no more, this lives in the cloud. And that's why they became cloud computing, a cloud computing powerhouse, because they were against software. And they were for, let us take care of that for you. We'll do the patches. We'll do the updates. We'll do the upgrades. You log into your computer, you will automatically, instantly get the very best, latest version of our software because we're hosting it, not you.
Right.
And so what are you for? What are you against? What's your mantra? What are your set of philosophies? What's your manifesto? Start teaching and preaching that, and then you will get the highest praise that I personally have ever gotten as a speaker, and it was the following. David's session was so personal, it felt like talking to him one-on-one.
There you go. That's it. See, you know, as somebody who guides leaders, one of the things I will often say is you don't need to build a wider wall. And people go, what do you mean? And I say, you need to build a narrower wall so you can push people off it. They're either in or they're out. And you can't do that until you choose what it is you're going to fight for and what it is you're going to fight against. And what happens oftentimes with an executive is they'll go out and they want to stand on the laurels of, well, I was the CEO of XYZ. Who cares? You're not anymore. I don't really care. But if you tell me I was the CEO of XYZ, and although that didn't happen in my company, here's what we saw. We saw this, and I am definitely going to make a change around that. I want to make a change to that because I believe in X, Y, and Z. And that, for me, is so important and so often rare that people are willing to make a freaking stand. One of my central philosophies when I work with speakers and teach them is, who's the hero? Who's the villain? Again, it's not you, right? Who's the villain? Who's the enemy? Go after the enemy. Choose an enemy. People will surround you. And I talked about this recently. I said, you know, whether you like Donald Trump or not, doesn't matter. What he's absolutely brilliant at is he keeps returning to who the enemy is. And he's called the enemy migrants. And he made them Muslims originally, and now they're Mexicans or they're Hondurans or whatever it is. But he goes after that enemy. And we as human beings are tribal. We want to be behind something. We want to have meaning in our lives. And so we get behind it. And I have met people who I consider highly intelligent people who go, yeah, but I'm supporting him. And I go, do you see this? And they go, yeah. I go, I know you. Do you think that's right? And they go, no, but I support this. They're behind the immigration thing, but they're against the other things. And that one thing keeps them online. And it's what I really admire is this understanding of you've got to decide. And when a speaker leads, that leader becomes a speaker, very often they lose that. It's actually the very thing that got them to the top. And then when they go out into the new world, they go, oh, well, I better be a little more vanilla, as you said.
I better play it safe. Exactly.
I better play it safe. And that just kills them.
Yeah.
Kills them every single time. So let's go back to you, David, because you know, you're a very successful speaker. You're a very successful speaker trainer. Were you always that guy? Were you the guy with a clear enemy and a clear villain? Or were you, did you play it safe for a while?
Oh my God. So the first 3 years of my business were a complete and utter disaster. And I mean, everything that we talked about, all these smart ideas, Dov, that we talked about, I didn't do any of them. No. I was the generalist. I had 30 different workshops, literally 30. I'm not making that up. I would do leadership, marketing, sales, human resources, hiring, firing, leading through change, leading through trust, everything, every single possible topic. People would ask me, David, what do you speak on? And my stock answer was, no, you don't understand. I'm a professional speaker. What do you need spoken on? I'll just go to the library, I'll read a couple books, and tomorrow, here's your program. So it was just a complete disaster. And I realized after 3 years of hitting every brick wall and every dead end, that wasn't the recipe for success. Mm-hmm. So I realized, okay, what do I really love to do? What of these topics really speaks to me and that I could do for the rest of my life? And I decided it was the marketing, sales, and business development topic. Right. So I dropped everything else, and I sort of look at those as one, because really my work is at the intersection of marketing, sales, and business development. And then I thin sliced it even further. Well, is this going to be for retail companies? Is this going to be for hotels? Is this going to be for yarn manufacturers? No, it's going to be for thought leading executives and entrepreneurs, people who have to market their smarts, people who have to, they're messengers of their message. They have something to say and something to sell, because that's, of course, who I am, right? So I decided to create the kind of business and the kind of programs that I wish I had when I was starting out, when I was an internal corporate executive, when I was working for a big consulting and HR management consulting firm, which was Towers Parent, when I was working in the technology sector with companies like PeopleSoft and Microsoft and Oracle. I didn't have any of this training. I didn't have any of this insight. Here's what I thought, and here's what a lot of other executives I think are banking on. But Dov, I'm a great speaker. Okay, sure. But as you said earlier in our conversation, there's a lot of great speakers out there who are broke because they don't have the business acumen of really going out to the marketplace, solving one problem with depth and variety and expertise and an opinion and recommendation and the tribe building DNA, all of these things that we kind of came full circle in talking about, and they play it safe. They just play it safe. So when I started to let go, I started to be more vulnerable. I started to be more opinionated. I started to say, here's what's right with the world. Here's what's wrong with the world. It was a polarizing point in my business, but polarizing is great. That means that some people are in and some people are out. And what I teach as far as sales and marketing, we are no longer in the convincing and persuading business. If you're still doing that with your marketing and sales, you're already behind the 8 ball. We are in the filtering and sorting business.
Absolutely.
If we're polarizing, or as you say, we make the wall narrower, I love pushing people off the wall, because you'll never turn anybody on if you don't risk turning some people off.
Yeah, I've mentioned before many times that I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, Larry Wingett. I'm sure you know Larry.
Sure.
And we were at Larry's house, and we were sitting around talking, and he says, he was leading this group of us. We were all speakers, and we were talking about, and he said, what's your fear? And he went around the room, and it got to him. And people, again, Larry's masterful at creating enemies. But as a result, he has tribe of incredibly loyal followers, and he was talking about fears and all the rest of it, and he said, and he was talking about what drives the market, and he said, if I don't get at least 2 death threats a week, I know I'm not relevant.
That's good. It's so true. It's so true.
But that's it, right? He's willing to go out onto the edge that far, which most people don't have the balls for, quite frankly, to say, here's what I'm for. And because of it, there's a perception of the man, which is, that he's a hard ass or whatever. Larry's the most lovely, kind, he will, of course, deny all this, but he's the most lovely, kind, caring, generous man. He's one of the great guys I've ever met. But his opinions are clear. Yeah. There's no gray area. Him and I have done shows together where I've interviewed him and where he's interviewed me. And we both start the shows going, we don't always agree with each other, but we definitely love each other. Right. And it's that willingness to take that stand. And it's so rare. I see it so rare in leaders. I see it so rare in individuals. I see it rarely in speakers. But I think that, as you said, the key point is this sharing humanity. And one of the things that I love about sharing humanity with people is understanding that in a world where we're all trying to fit in, you can't fit in and stand out. That's a key point. And one of the things that I recommend to people is tell people about your weirdness. What's weird about you that other people would go, oh, because that actually creates a point of interest. So what's weird about David Newman?
Well, the list is long. The list is long.
We don't have 2 hours for this.
I will give you my favorite weirdness. Besides that, I like spicy food, jalapenos, and things like that. I'm an old school retro video game aficionado.
Mm.
Atari, Pong, Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Missile Command. We redid our basement, Dov. One of the main reasons that we refinished our basement is so I could install what I call the Ultra Video Gaming Retro Lounge. And I have about 14 different video game consoles, about 3 or 4 old school computers, Commodore 64, Atari 800, Intellivision, ColecoVision, the original Xbox, all the old school games. And you can literally go down to my basement and you would never need to come up, because all you're doing is you're playing Moon Patrol, you're playing Halo, you're playing Doom, you're playing all these old school console and computer video games. So that makes me kind of weird.
Yeah.
And but it's also kind of fun.
Right.
So I love flying the freak flag. You know, tell people what's freaky about you. Tell them what they might never ordinarily guess or know from the outside. And that is a tremendous way to access their humanity, and also to share some fun stories about maybe someone has a common hobby, or they go, oh my God, I love old school video games. That's awesome.
Well, aside from that, I always say that you can get rapport directly, as you just said. Somebody else is saying, yeah, I'm into Space Invaders too. That's a direct, of course, right?
Yeah.
But there's also sort of a handed over rapport, which is, well, my son's into Atari, right? And
Absolutely.
Now I'm listening again because there's an associative rapport.
Right.
And it's really important. And I always say, it doesn't matter how weird and freaky it is. Everybody knows somebody. If it's not them, they know somebody who's into that.
Right.
And this is called rapport by association, which is what we do. And it says, oh, I kind of get David because he's into this and I'm into that. And so immediately you said old school videos. I am not a video game guy at all. Never played them, never been interested in them whatsoever. But when Space Invaders came out, I was 19 years old. So that's a long time ago. That's a long time ago. And when it came out, and I still lived in the UK, and I used to play it in the pub with my uncle. And it immediately brings me back to that relationship with my uncle. I'm telling everybody this because I want them to grasp why it's important to share your freak flag, as you say. So I immediately go back to my relationship with my uncle, which was a great relationship. He was one of my mentors in life. And so now I'm pulled back into that emotional bond. So now, and this is called the law of associative memory. In the law of associative memory, I am now connected to David via my Uncle Ellis and that video game and the bond that I have. That bond that I have with him is now shifted over to David, and I now have a deeper emotional connection with David, even though I don't play video games.
Right.
That is the power of what you've just shared that I want everybody to really get, because that is incredibly powerful and incredibly significant for people to grasp.
For sure.
What, as we come towards the end, I want to know what was something that you did, because I believe that leadership is really about growth and development for us as leaders. What was something that you did that was really, you've talked about some of this, but maybe a little more. What is it that you did that was kind of in the way, blocked you from having the kind of success that you needed to have?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny because I saw a direct example of the opposite of this when I was working in a big HR consulting firm.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that I went out on my own, I figured I was a lone wolf. I'm going to figure everything out. A man is an island. I'm just going to make all of this happen. And I refused outside help. I have a great friend to this day. His name is Scott. Scott came to me as a venture capitalist, very successful guy, very savvy with money. He says, David, what can I do to help you? And he asked with no expectation, certainly no payment was involved. It was just a friend. How can I help you? You're starting down your entrepreneurial journey. You're a good guy. I want to lend you a hand. My answer to Scott for years was, no, nothing. I'm good, dude. I'm great. What can I do for you? How can I help you? And Scott was making millions of dollars. I was making, zero. I could have asked for advice, for mentorship, to bounce ideas off him, to help me, with introductions, with connections. And I did none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was inside, the day that I had this aha revelation, I thought back to all of the management consulting partners that I had known inside of this big consulting firm that I had just come out of. And one partner in particular was famous for asking anyone and everyone for their help, their ideas, their opinions, and for favors. And I looked at this person and go, well, this person's a mover and a shaker. Why? Because she can ask anyone above her, same level or below her, what do you think? Could you help me out? I'd love your help with this. Could you do me a favor? And some of these favors were small, but many were medium and large. Her reputation was enhanced by asking for help. It was not diminished, right? She was a mover and a shaker. She knew everybody. She could get favors from everybody. She would give as well, of course. But the behavior that I admired is she was fearless in asking. I go out on my own, even having seen that example firsthand. I'm not asking. Even when it's offered, I'm not taking. And that was the dumbest, if I shudder to think where I would be today if just the first 3 years I had said yes instead of no. If I had said I would love that instead of no thanks, I'm fine. If I was humble enough and smart enough and vulnerable enough to say, Scott, I really could use your help. Dov, I'd love to tap into your brilliance on this one. Mark, would you be fantastic enough to help me with X or Y or Z? My business would be triple where it is today. We're doing really well. We're blessed. It's awesome. But it would not have had to be this long, painful slog up the hill. I could have taken the helicopter to the top of the mountain. So, one of my mantras that I teach our folks today is an acronym called Your Business Needs to Flop, FLOP, feature and leverage other people. Help other people and accept the help when it's offered to you.
That's a great acronym. I love it. What was the turning point?
I got into some hot water. I'll tell you because it's a very vulnerable story. I got into some hot water with some legal contracts and a nightmare partner from hell. That day, Scott asked the eternal question, David, what can I do to help you? I finally said, there is something. I'm kind of in a bad situation here. I need to get out of it. I need to extract myself from this nightmare partnership. I need to extract myself from this financial burden that the partnership has caused. Could you help me? And he said, absolutely. And in the matter of 4 to 5 weeks, partner was gone, burden was relieved. The financial implication was cut down by about 75% because he negotiated on my behalf. Never dreamed such a thing was possible. And coming out the other side of that, I realized, not just with Scott, but with everybody in my life, I need to ask for more help and I need to accept it more often when it's offered. Beautiful. So now whenever someone says, hey, David, what can I do for you? My answer is never, nothing, I'm fine, I'm good. I will make something up just to exercise that muscle, just to exercise that conditioning. So I'm constantly asking for help, connection, introduction, ideas, brainstorming, anything. It could be small, medium, large, or supersize, but I will no longer let myself say, nothing, I'm awesome, how can I help you?
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a very important lesson right there. As we come towards the end, I want to move into the quick fire round. Are you good with that?
I'm great.
Okay, excellent. Tell us, David, what makes you cry? As in tears of sadness.
Missed potential. Do you want more on that?
Yeah, a little bit. Sure.
Okay. So I'm not sure how fast lightning is. So missed potential when I see someone who is not living up to their own potential or not working up to their own potential. And this includes my kids, by the way. Sure. This is not just a professional thing. This is with, kids, family, friends, everyone. People holding themselves back, people playing small, thinking small potatoes, under-potentialized human effort makes me very, very sad.
Yeah, I understand that.
And even in myself too, by the way, full disclosure, when I'm not playing my A game, that frustrates the living daylights out of me, sometimes to the point of tears.
Yeah, I totally understand that. What makes you cry laughing?
Dirty jokes, dirty, completely inappropriate humor. I will double over, tears streaming down my face. You know, it's kind of like church giggles, where like when it's completely wrong, it's completely inappropriate. I'll give you an example. I was on YouTube, and you know how YouTube works. You always find yourself in some strange corner of the universe. Yeah. I was watching Don Rickles. Don Rickles' stand-up routine from the 1970s. Today, completely unacceptable. Even back in the day, it was pretty close to unacceptable.
On the day he was on the edge, but to now he'd never get a gig.
No, exactly. He'd be like, "Oh, we can't hire him," but just doubled over with laughing out loud enjoyment.
Yeah, I love him too. What has been the most difficult inner demon that you've had to battle?
Poverty mindset. Getting my relationship with money clear and clean and straight, and undoing all of the programming. My parents are Depression era babies. So they grew up, they're Eastern European Jews. So now you have Hungarian Jews. Both, we had the Nazis and then the communists. Thank you very much. And never enough food to go around, always saving and scrimping. That's how I was raised. That's the DNA that got transferred to me. And that will screw up your prosperity mindset. That will screw up your relationship with money lots of ways. I've done a lot of work on that, and that is something that I'm always mindful of helping other people with as well.
What was one of the major shifts for you with that?
Awareness that there's such a thing as poverty mindset. Back in I think this was in the 1980s, there's a fantastic book called Money Love, and I forget the name of the author. I read that book, and I was like, holy smokes, he's talking about me. He's talking about my upbringing, my programming, my belief system. And that book was very helpful because it wasn't this revolutionary, stop thinking that way. It was this progressive, here's where this comes from. Here's why it's valid to those people in that time. Here's where we have evolved to. Here's your current reality and your current situation. You can let all that old thinking go. And it's a brilliant, brilliant book. If you can find a used copy somewhere, it's Money Love.
Fabulous. What's a guilty pleasure for David Newman?
Chocolate. Lots and lots of chocolate. Dark chocolate, dark chocolate marshmallows, dark chocolate almond bark, dark chocolate cherries, dark chocolate anything and everything. Dark chocolate covered bacon.
Oh,
it's true.
That's very kosher.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about there's milchig, fleischig, and there's chaza. You're like, if we're gonna get sinning, let's double down on the sinning.
We may as well go all the way to wrong.
All the way. If you're going to hell, you might as well go for a
good. Going to hell, we might as well enjoy the trip.
You're packing treats for the journey.
I am.
In a parallel universe, what do you do?
Graphic designer.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm a typography geek. I'm a design geek. I love fonts and typefaces, mid-century modern design, graphic design, posters, books, even book covers from the 1940s and 50s and 60s and 70s. I'm just a huge design geek. If I were to come back, my spirit animal would be a graphic designer.
That's very, very cool. Have you heard of something called the Awesome Music Project?
No.
It's a brand new book that's come out. I am actually one of the co-authors, or one of the collective authors in there, and it's people writing about how music has impacted their lives.
Wow.
And each story has like an album cover to it. But what's fascinating about it is I actually met the guy who did the design of the cover. And it looks like a 1970s album cover with the crease from the record inside. You would love it. As a guy who loves that kind of stuff, you would absolutely love this. Because I looked at it and went, if you told me you're going to put turquoise and orange together, I would have gone, ugh, that sounds terrible. But it looks amazing because it's like oh my God, this is an album. And it's a coffee table book. Fantastic. Just thought I'd let you know on that one. I think you'll really enjoy that. Go look it up. So, David, it's been wonderful having you here. Before we finish, I'm going to give you a chance to tell people where they can find out more about you. But before we do, what's the one piece of practical advice you would like to share with our listeners, with our viewers, that they could go away and put into action in preferably the next 24 hours?
I would say that as an executive or an entrepreneur, this is the moment. Today is the day that you stop resisting and start embracing your role as speaker in chief. Mm-hmm. So start using speaking as your ultimate marketing strategy. If you're in a marketing mode, start to use speaking as your ultimate leadership brand builder, and start to use speaking as your one-to-many sales platform. So rather than shirk it or delegate it, step into your role as CEO speaker or VP or president speaker and start to embrace it, relish it, devote some specific time to your leadership speaking and leadership brand with speaking efforts.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. That was awesome. So, David, this has been wonderful. I'd love for you to share with our viewers and our listeners all your fabulous resources, where they can find out more about you and all the wonderful things that you offer.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So the main headquarters online, of course, is Do It Marketing, doitmarketing.com. If you're interested in some companion tools to the Do It Marketing book, that's doitmarketing.com/book. And we also have some free online web training at doitmarketing.com/training.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And of course, we'll make sure that we post all of that information on the show notes so you can get more of it. And, as always, I encourage you to go back and listen several times to the show to make sure that it's not just something that's going on in the background. Remember, information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation takes place from application. You can hang out with other conscious leaders and chat about this episode or any past episodes by going to either our Facebook or our LinkedIn pages by looking for the Leadership and Loyalty podcast. You can find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as your speaker or strategist for your organization by simply going to fullmontyleadership.com/consulting or fullmontyleadership.com/speaking. The research consistently shows that even the fastest growing companies face the challenges of spending a ton of money, energy, time to attract, train, and develop their top talent. But they have the same issue as maybe you do, which is the overwhelming loss of great talent. If you're frustrated with investing and training your top talent and you are not getting your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, because you can't outsource authenticity. And also remember to stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. There's no triple W's, just Matrix like the movie, .fullmontyleadership.com, and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. It's absolutely free to you for being a regular viewer, listener to our show. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about the power of your sharing what you know, your human and your knowledge, to make you a leader in your industry and in the world. Remember, it's about impact and influence. I'm Dov Baron, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, your leadership impact. And I am out.